It's been one hell of a year. You remember that whole Yanni Laurel thing? That was back in May. I mean, time flies when you're having fun, but it has been a dumpster fire here in the West, with the presidential Cheeto daily proving himself completely incapable of stringing together a coherent set of words, telling the truth, or proving himself to be anything other than an entitled silver spoon illiterate baby. Frankly, it's a mess, but it's been proven to be lucrative for the media. It's the clickbait president, and that boon is extended to publishing as well. Or frankly, publishing needs the boost. Since 2015, there hasn't been a multi-million selling nonfiction book released. The last book to do that was Paula Hawking's Girl on the Train with 11 million in sales. Now, in the last 2 years alone, there's been an 11% decline in fiction sales, matched by an 11% increase in nonfiction sales attributable to the Trump bump. Bob Woodward's Fear sold 1.1 million in his first week alone, and it joins a bunch of other Trump-adjacent books that have done gangbusters. You have Michael Wolff's Fire and Fury, James Comey, A Higher Loyalty back in May, Omarosa's Unhinged, and even Whose Boat Is This Boat? Thankfully, the best-selling book this year is Michelle Obama's Becoming, which is, of course, the epitome of an anti-Trump book, but it still can be considered somewhat of a reaction to the Trump presidency. It's crazy to consider how much Trump has been a boon to publishing, considering he's frankly illiterate, or generously not a big reader. Now, all the titles I mentioned earlier, you've probably heard of, but there is a title you probably have missed, and that's a shame. It's Ben Fountain's Beautiful Country, Burn Again, and it is one hell of a read. Ben Fountain, he's a former attorney and, if it matters, considered by Malcolm Gladwell as a genius. He's also a late-to-the-game author responsible for Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. Now, I haven't seen the movie, but I did read the book, and it was fantastic. And on the strength of that book alone was enough to get me to pick up Beautiful Country, Burn Again. Back in 2016, Ben Fountain was tasked by The Guardian to hit the campaign trail and cover the lead up to the presidential election. It was a chance for him to take the nation's temperature and figure out what the hell was actually going on. Now, this was way back in the BC era, before Cheeto, and Fountain came back with a series of essays that were published in The Guardian, which became the foundation for Beautiful Country, Burn Again. You can get a taste of the book if you want. I'll have a link to some of those stories in the description down below. Check it out, see what you're getting yourself into. This is Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail, but it's not old man shaking his fist at the kids these days. It's more grizzled veteran that you sidle up next to the bar to share a whiskey with as he breaks it down for you. Fountain doesn't have to play the moderate journalist. This is more of a long-form screed. It is hella funny and wicked. And it's not tinfoil hat-wearing partisan screed either. I mean, Fountain has no love for Trump. As far as he's concerned, he is a racist, hate-mongering, bald-faced liar that has a face with a dull sheen of junkyard chrome. But Fountain's got no love for Clinton either. As far as he's concerned, she's a Washington elite that is completely incapable of connecting with the middle class and a massive blind spot when it comes to money. He recalls an interview that Hillary gave to Diane Sawyer where she straight-faced talked about her and Bill leaving the White House broke, actually in debt, unable to pay a mortgage, or wondering how they're going to pay for Chelsea's education, as if they were regular blue-collar schmucks trying to get by. Meanwhile, of course, they are putting an offer in on a $2.85 million house. Bill is getting $15 million to sit on an advisory board for an investment firm, and Hillary can just shrug when asked about $675,000 speaking fees and says, well, that's what they offered, as if that is what any schmuck off the street could expect. It's no wonder that she was incapable of connecting with the middle class. And finally, there's Ted Cruz, that Fountain thinks is a dissembler and a sneak, determined to out-Jesus every other candidate out there. So Fountain has a nonpartisan dislike for just about everyone, and even he can begrudgingly admit and admire Trump's ability to evoke emotion and connect so well with a keen sense of showmanship with his entire base. And who exactly is this base that elected Trump? Well, Fountain takes the nation's temperature and attends the 145th National Rifle Association's annual conference with its 11 acres of guns and gear, its naturally uniform whiteness of attendees all looking to buy a piece of rugged individualism and triumphant history. Now, gun show, easy pickings maybe, but Fountain's smarter than that, and he really delves in and gets into the wide-eyed consumerist wonder shows like this can evoke. He also finds himself at the Quickens Loan Arena for the Republican National Convention, where stern warnings are issues that tennis balls are not allowed. Same goes for water guns, toy guns, rope, tape, umbrellas with metal tips, and a dozen other items. All not allowed on the floor. What is allowed, however, are guns. guns are allowed in the open carry state of Ohio. Clearly, America has lost its mind. Later on, he'll run some numbers. U.S. deaths from terrorism, 2001 to 2015. Estimates on the high side, rounded up whenever possible. Deaths from 9/11, 3,000. Military personnel killed in Afghanistan, Iraq, 7,000. Military contractors killed in those places, 7,200. Military personnel, post-war trauma, tied to killed in action, estimating up in lieu of reliable numbers, say 7,000. Civilians involved in acts of domestic terror, 87. Civilians involved in acts of terror overseas, 350. Total deaths by acts of terror since 2001, 25,000. Now you contrast that with non-terror-related deaths involving handguns of U.S. citizens since 2001, 404,000. Somehow the numbers add up to something completely different than the dominant narrative of the last 15 years. American politics is run on fear, and as far as Fountain is concerned, fear is the herpes of American politics. Its symptoms may bloom and fade with stress levels and phases of the moon, but it is a virus that doesn't die. And it has brought the American people to a point of crisis, a place they've only been twice before during the Civil War and the Great Depression, where the nation has had to completely reinvent itself in order to plausibly move ahead as a genuine constitutional democracy. Oh hell, what do I know? I'm from Canada. I'm just a rubbernecker looking at the overturned car on fire in the ditch at the side of the road. But at the same time, it's been a tinder dry summer. I'm in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by woods on a quarter tank of gas, basically at a standstill. So I am keeping a close eye on that car on fire. Anyway, between chapters, Fountain includes something what he calls a book of days. It's a stream of consciousness recounting of the news events of that month, vomited up in a sludgy mess. It is crazy, it's discordant, and it didn't work for a lot of readers, but I appreciated the context. It shows the United States is simply a small country, part of a larger world that does seem to be in a state of constant turmoil, and it really touches on the breakneck pace of news media these days. Ben Fountain is one hell of a writer, and I get it. This is one hell of a hard hand sell. Who wants to read up to the lead up to this current administration? It feels like ancient history and maybe a little bit triggering. So do yourself a favor, check out those Guardian articles and see if it strikes a chord for you. I think this is still a valuable book, well worth reading. Let me know, have you read a lot more nonfiction this year? I know the best-selling books this year are Michelle Obama's Becoming and Michael Wolff's Fire and Fury, but those aren't really represented on BookTube all that much. Maybe there's just not a space for that here. Anyway, I hope you guys all have a great week of reading. I don't know if I'll get another video in before Christmas, or maybe I'll just do a whole bunch of vloggy type ones. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I hope you have a great holiday, and we'll talk to you soon.